Hey guys, it's Lohpally here with another video, and today we're going to be talking about 8.13 and the top 5 supports that I believe are strong in this current patch. So we're just going to jump right into it since there hasn't been too much to the game changes outside of a couple of small minor tweaks on some numbers. So coming in at number 5 is actually going to be Pyke once again. The reason why Pyke is really strong right now is the fact that his hook isn't a cleansable element, as it does pull people back. It's not very easy for people to get out of it in terms of cleansing or QSS. Plus, since there's a lot of squishy targets right now, he has a lot of opportunities and options to ulti reset in team fights. This influxes a lot of gold for him, plus he actually received a couple of buffs for the most part in the recent patch, increasing the AD ratio on his ultimate and his E. Although he lost a little bit of HP, it's pretty negligible because they compensated by giving him better armor growth and better magic resist growth per level. So when it comes to rune setups, I've pretty much exclusively been running, and talked to most people and they universally agree that running Aftershock still feels incredibly good on the champion, as it's really easy to proc from both your hook and your E-stun, so it just gives you a lot of tankiness, especially on a champion that has very low base HP that you can't increase. It's just really helpful in that regard. Plus, it's very difficult to proc the Domination Electrocute. And most of the time when you're playing this champion, you're usually just fishing for hooks and then ulting off of resets. You're not usually using your E aggressively unless there's a really good opportunity. After that, we go bone plating because it's just the best talent in this top tree. Once after that, we basically are choosing between conditioning and second wind for the most part. I know a lot of people have maybe been running Chrysalis, but the 50 health is pretty negligible in the early stages because you get 1 AD every 14 piece of health, so you get 3 to 4 AD, and I feel like that's pretty negligible and quite low. And although it's nice to get 9 AD later on, I haven't been really a big fan of Chrysalis on this champion, so usually I'm bouncing between conditioning and second wind and gravitating closer to conditioning in most cases. Only time I take second wind is when it's an extreme case where the enemy lane is very poke heavy and I feel like I need to sustain myself up a little bit more even beyond the passive. After that, I've just been pretty much exclusively running unflinching. The reason for this is just reducing the CC reduction feels really good, and if it's a champion that wants to roam around a lot, so getting Moby Boots is really what I want. I don't want to have to invest in Merc Treads, so I've liked this rune as the cover-all for CC reduction. After that, you can kind of go whatever you feel like in terms of your secondary. I've been still a big fan, as of last video, of running the Precision with Triumph and Legend Tenacity. This just makes me have about 30 to 50% CC reduction in the mid game, and it feels really good to not get crowd controlled, especially on a champion that's incredibly squishy and wants to get resets. Some other options include maybe potentially running Sorcery and running something with Water Walking and maybe Absolute Focus. But outside of that, I haven't been too big a fan of the other trees. Maybe if you want inspiration and you want a stopwatch early, that's also a reasonable thing with maybe something like Biscuits or Cosmic Insight. But I've been pretty much exclusively running Precision when it comes to that. A lot of people have been asking me, Lohpally, what do you build on this champion? I usually get my hands on a coin at the start and then rush my Moby Boots. That way I can move around quite frequently. After that, I'm usually picking between a couple of things, especially with the AD ratio increases. It's kind of nerfed a lot of the armor stacking. Some people were going Frozen Gauntlet or Frozen Heart first item on the champion. I wasn't too big of a fan of it, and especially with the AD ratio buffs, you definitely don't want to be going that. So most of the time, you're just going to go a generic Black Cleaver. This gives you a lot of AD, and it covers your 20% CDR. It's not a big deal that you can't stack the debuff. It's just the most cost-efficient way to get 20% CDR very easily on the champion in one item. Another option, too, is you can get a Duskblade early if you feel like wards are a big issue and you want vision control, but make sure you get your Black Cleaver afterwards. One of the main reasons also why I go a coin instead of Relic is because the AD is negligible on the Relic in the early stages, plus I only have to upgrade my coin to the tier 2 to get access to 10% CDR, so it's a lot easier for me to get access to my other damage items. Now in the case of the enemy team maybe has 2 to 3 magic damage dealers, then what I end up doing a lot of times is going Black Cleaver into Maw. This will cover your 40% CDR, give you a nice stacking shield, and give you AD. After that, pretty much you're just looking at whatever you feel is necessary. Guardian Angel is actually a really great item on him. Gargoyle Stoneplate interaction still works too, so if you need armor and MR, that's also another option for you. All in all, it's most important that you just make sure you get your Black Cleaver and kind of adjust your build based on whether or not there's a lot of physical damage or magic damage, or if it's well balanced. So now we're going to jump into what I believe is number 4 in the tier list, which is Rakan. As stated before, kind of one of the reasons why Pyke and a lot of champions are becoming more popular right now, everyone is pretty squishy. So champions like Rakan, where you can instantly pick someone with an RW, and it's relatively easy to pull off combo-wise and hard for people to react to, it makes the champion pretty powerful. One of the drawbacks the reasons why I don't have him higher on the tier list, despite that, is the fact that he isn't very good 1 through 5 for most case, and needs to scale up to really hit his level 6 power spike. Once he becomes that, though, he's a very strong teamfight menace, and he can build a lot of items that can stat steroid your AD carry and propel him into a mid-game spike a lot faster, which is something a lot of supports currently that are being played can't actually do, since a lot of the shielding and healing supports have kind of fallen at the wayside. Because of that, this makes Rakan number 4, but not quite as strong just because of the 1 through 5 power trough. When it comes to runes, I've pretty much exclusively run Airy. The reason why I don't like Guardian so much is mostly because of the fact that I prefer to have some extra damage, and I am a big fan of building predominantly AP on this champion, which scales just a lot better with Airy, especially because if you shield someone, you have 5 seconds to cast it again, which allows you to actually proc the Airy after waiting 3 to 4 seconds, so you can get multiple Aries in one of your E-shields. So it's just really efficient in that sense. Plus it gives you a little bit more damage on burst when you're catching people. I find that it's more versatile in every way. If you feel like Guardian is a better fit for you, it's totally reasonable to run it. I've just personally not been a big fan of it. So when we run the Airy tree, I've been running Nimbus Cloak. I've been really liking this rune combination with the ultimate, since the quickness increases your movement speed, and combining it with Celerity. This gives you a ton of burst AP, and it makes your RW combo do a ton of damage. It means that there's just a lot lower threshold for your teammates to deal damage, so that you can catch out a player and kill them. After that, I've mostly been just running Scorch. Just games don't last long enough for Gathering the Storm, and I've not been a big fan of roaming too much on Rakan. I've usually been going something like Lucidity Boots or Merc Treads, so Water Walking doesn't seem to really make any sense for me. So I've just been going Scorch for the little bit of extra damage, plus the harassing lane. After that, I've just been running Resolve Tree with Bone Plating and Chrysalis, just to make sure that I'm as tanky as possible, and Chrysalis turning into AP means that I have some scaling advantage. When it comes to itemization, if you are playing with a traditional AD carry, in most cases I've been liking Lucidity Boots into Zeke's. And basically the way I choose between Spell Thieves and Coin is if I am against a lane that has maybe a melee champion in it, I feel like I can auto-attack and trade, then maybe Spell Thieves is what I go. But most of the time, if I had like a percentage, it's about 70-30 for Coin, just because it's a lot harder for you to harass people consistently and generate the income. Plus Coin's not too bad anyway, because it gives you bonus movement speed for your engage and moving around. And after I get Lucidity Boots and my item, I go Zeke's Convergence if I'm playing with any kind of AD carry that does damage and can utilize this buff. Just really great to combo with your ulti. Plus on top of that, it creates a slowing field around you, so when you RW in, after they're CC'd, then you're slowing on them. And Rakan actually has pretty high base auto attack damage, so in some cases it'll actually give you your finishing power to kill people. After that, I've been a really big fan of Athene's. And if you don't have like a traditional AD carry, let's use the example of maybe a Vladimir, Swain, Brand, etc. I just go straight for Athene's. And then after that, usually it just depends on what team fights look like. If your AD carry is doing well, maybe you get an Ardent third. If not, you can go something like a Redemption. It synergizes really well with the Athenes because the mana regen gives you extra AP. After that, it's mostly just up to you. Sometimes last item, if I feel like I'm getting CC too hard, I get something like a Banshee's Veil. You can also get things like Locket that make you tankier. For the most part, after you get your first or second item, it's not too big of a deal where you deviate to. Just make sure that your positioning is good on the champion. So now jumping into number 3, which is Morgana. And the reason why Morgana is really strong is the same reason why the champions above him are really strong. She shuts down a lot of CC in the game and enables a lot of carries to just be really hard to deal with. Plus, you can't go wrong with a up to 3 second snare. It's extremely powerful pretty much in all shapes and form. And since the mana regen change, she actually doesn't really struggle too much in lane in terms of her spam ability for her pool, which gives her lane priority. And having push is always beneficial for a champion that has skill shots, because then there's less minions for you to have to shoot through. Because of that and the fact that there's just so many melee champions, she just shuts down a lot of carries, especially like Irelia, Jax, Aatrox, etc. very well. So she's just quite potent and generically easier to play than some of the other champions. But you need to hit the bindings, so make sure to always be practicing that. When it comes to rune setups for her, I mostly have just been running, once again, in the sorcery tree, summon Airy. But instead of running the Nimbus Cloak, which some people have suggested to me, but I'm not too big of a fan of, just run Mana Flow Band. That way I don't run out of mana and constantly push and pressure the lane all the time. After that, since Celerity, you don't have a lot of ways to give yourself bonus movement speed, I've moved away from Celerity and gone into Absolute Focus just for bonus AP for harassment, and just combine that with the Scorch since it's really good with Airy and your pool. After that, I've just been running Resolve Tree with the Bone Plating Chrysalis, but I know some people want to get the Zonias as fast as possible, so they've been running Inspiration with Perfect Timing and Cosmic Insight, which is both fine. For itemization on this champion, it seems like now that everyone does so much damage, stasis is key. So if you decide that you aren't going to, if you run Resolve Tree, then just make sure that you're getting Azonias within your first or second item in most cases. A lot of champions nowadays dive and pile on you so hard that it's actually okay for you to have the Zonias nowadays, just to give you the bonus AP, give you CDR, and make sure that you can't die while you're channeling your ultimate. After that, the itemization is mostly up to you, depending on your circumstances. If you feel like you need to do more damage, you can get things like Morello and potentially a Void Staff. But if you feel like you want to gravitate more towards utility, then items like Locket, Zeke's, and Redemption are all fine buys on Morgana anyway. For the most part, it's mostly just important that you get your hands on Azonias if there's any champions that can dive you. That way you take that opportunity away from them, and you can bait a lot of fights easier. Alright, so jumping into number 2 on the list is Fiddlesticks. Since the rise of this champion, a lot of tweaks have happened to it. So basically the main reason why this champion is quite strong now is twofold. Easy to use CC. His point click fear and silence combination locks people down for potentially 2 to 3 seconds almost always. Very easy to use too. All of his skills are point and click for the most part. His ultimate does a ton of damage, and most people are really squishy right now, so it's easy for you to kill and catch anyone in pretty much in laning phase. Also, since the buffs to Sweeper Lens, and Pink Wards, it's a lot easier to find angles to jump on people and kill them. Especially also because I've seen a lot less heals in lane and such, that it's just easier in terms of damage thresholds to kill people. Also, with the discovery of the new rune page that I've been running that I'll introduce you to in a second, it means that the champion's weaknesses, which is getting all in and being very squishy, aren't as important anymore. So, kind of segueing into that is the rune setup, which is we're going to run Aftershock. The reason why Aftershock is because it's really easy for you to proc. You just fear someone and that's going to guarantee your Aftershock, which then makes you a lot tankier. It's a lot easier for you to not worry about getting all in if you can fear and gain a bunch of bonus armor, and then just drain health, and it allows you to kind of resustain yourself up, especially in all ins. For this rune page, we're going to be running Bone Plate once again, and Chrysalis, just to be as tanky as humanly possible in the early stages, so that we don't die, and then run Revitalize, because I like it with the combination of the drain, heals you a lot extra, and especially when you're low, if you have Aftershock running at the same time, it becomes pretty hard for you to die in certain circumstances. After that, I've been running Sorcery Secondary with Nimbus Cloak and Celerity. Same combination I was describing with Rakan. Really great for when you ultimate over into a wall, gives you a lot of bonus AP. Plus, it means that you may not always need to commit your flash to someone who's maybe a little bit farther outside your range because you get the bonus movement speed. For itemization, it's a lot correlating to basically Morgana. You just want to get your hands on Azonias as soon as possible. Another thing to note too is that it's pretty important for your damage threshold to make sure that you're getting Sorcerer Shoes on this champion. It amplifies your damage a lot, and it's very noticeable in games where I do buy it and where I don't buy it. Much like when we used to play Karma a lot. So Sorcerer Shoes, get your Spell Thieves tier 2, get your Zonias as fast as possible. After that, you kind of have a couple deviations. I've mostly been going Morellos as a next item if I need healing reduction, or if people aren't building a lot of MR, because remember, Oblivion Orb minus subtracts magic resist, so that's multiplicative. So if you don't have a lot of magic threats, this is a great item just to get in terms of DPS, so that you can have just a lot of pen, since your base damages are actually quite high, especially on the ultimate. After that, you just want to get your hands on maybe something like a Void Staff and a Death Cap. You're just building predominantly AP. It's just important that you get your Zonias first. That way, when you ulti over a wall into 3 people, you don't die instantly. Alright, and then jumping into number 1, which is still Brand. A lot of people are playing a ton of melee champions right now, and Brand just does a ton of damage to them whenever they're stacked up. He's just a really easy champion to play, and he actually has pretty good long-range poke harass with his W, especially because it circumvents the wave since it isn't a line skill shot. So this champion in general is just really good. He brings a good chunk of damage and has some CC if you can hit the combo spells. He mostly just does good in this meta just because of how predominant melee champions are and how often people dive in, allowing you to stack your debuffs quite easily and get 3 stack procs and do a lot of damage. For the most part, I've been running Sorcery once again with Summon Airy. A lot of people have asked me why I don't run Comet. The reason for this is after extensive testing, the Comet was missing almost 40 to 50% of the time when I was playing with it, so I just felt like it wasn't as consistent as Airy can proc multiple times on someone who's debuffed or dotted. So I just decided to go with Airy. Plus I auto attack a decent amount in laning phase, so this gives me a lot of extra damage when it comes to just trading in general. Once we go down the tree, it's mostly just mana flow ban. That way we don't run out of mana. You don't predominantly build any mana items on this champion, so having mana flow is pretty much a must. And then after that, although I've been trying Transcendence because it made sense in my head, I've been switching over to Absolute Focus just to have as much harass and pressure in lane early. I just want to be spiking as fast as possible with these runes, so this reflects it more than running something like Transcendence. After that, we just run Scorch for more damage. Then once we're in the secondary tree, I've been predominantly running Bone Plating and Chrysalis. Although you can also once again make arguments for running Perfect Timing, which is the stopwatch, and then maybe Biscuits or Cosmic Insight. If you feel like you're going to need to get a Zonia's first item, this is not a bad way to approach it. Examples of this is maybe there's a Talon or Rengar, Tryndamere, Irelia, etc. And you feel like your position isn't going to be good enough all the time consistently, and you're probably going to need a Zonia's. This is not a bad way to substitute that and just kind of lead off your Zonia's in that case. So when we're jumping into itemization build, if you don't need the Zonia's first, then usually just get your tier 2 Spell Thieves as soon as possible, Sorcerer's Shoes once again, and if you are snowballing, as in you picked up a couple of kills, maybe you're a lot more ahead than you used to, Oblivion Orb, even if you don't plan on making a Morello's, is completely fine, because it'll give you double pen with your Sorcerer's Shoes and really propel you ahead. If that's not the case, then usually you just go Liandry's into Rylai's into Void Staff. And then maybe you go back and either finish your Morello's, or your 4th item is something like a Luden's Echo for extra CDR. Doesn't particularly matter what your 4th item is, just that it gives you a lot of extra damage. And the core is really the most important thing, which is Liandry's, Rylai's, and then Void Staff. Some champions that I'm kind of looking at and maybe good in the future that I've been having some success with has been Alistar and Lulu. Although they didn't make the top 5 lists, I feel like these champions are pretty reasonably good in certain circumstances, especially to counter things like Pyke or Rakan. So if you like those champions, those are also good champions to be playing during this patch. Anyway, guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment in the section below, and hit that bell and whistle so you can get notifications whenever new content comes out. This is your 8.13 top 5 tier list. I'm Lohpally. See you next time. Peace.